In today's video, we are going to be solving systems of equations using the elimination method. Now, previously, we've learned how to solve systems graphically, where we graph two lines and saw where they intersect, if they intersected, and that point where they intersected would be our solution set. Now, the same thing here, we have equations that look a little bit differently than the y equals mx plus b form. These are both in standard form, meaning that you have the x term, the y term equals the constant, x term, y term equals the constant. And our solution set, again, is still going to be a coordinate where you have an x value and a y value. So there's two numbers that we're going to be solving for in these equations. So we're going to be using our algebra skills. So we're going to need a separate sheet of paper kind of to show our work with these. So we have negative x plus 2y equals negative 15, and 8x minus 2y equals negative 20. So I wrote those on separate paper. So now you ask yourself, how am I going to solve this with two different letters, two different variables? Well, you can combine equations. So I'm going to write a -1 there. You can actually add these equations together or combine them somehow. So we have -1x plus 2y equals negative 15. And you have 8x minus 2y equals negative 20. You can just add these up. -1x plus 8x is 7x. 2y minus 2y cancels out. Those eliminate. That makes our job a lot easier when we're solving this. Negative 15 minus 20 is negative 35. Then it becomes a one-step equation. Look at that. You just divide both sides by 7, and you get x is -5. So back here, you can plug in the x value is -5. But notice we have another thing we have to solve for. We have to solve for y. How are we going to do that? We're going to take this x and plug it into one of these equations up here and solve for y. I'm going to plug it into this one, because I tried to avoid negatives. Maybe this negative will mess you up. So I'm going to plug it into that one. So I'm going to plug it into this equation and solve for y. So we have 8 times -5 minus 2 times -5, or 2 times y equals -20. 8 times -5 is -40. Now this becomes a two-step equation where I add 40 to both sides. So you have -2y. Don't forget to bring down the negative, please. Bring down this negative. Equals 20. Divide by -2. And I get my y is, I'm going to write it over here, -10. So I have my x value. Now I have my y value. Now, if I plug this in to the equation up here, I still should have gotten the same thing. And to kind of double check that, we can do that real quick. We could plug in -5 up to this equation up here. Let me do this color. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, so we have negative of a -5 plus 2y's. Is, what was it? I missed it. -15. So it'd be 5 plus 2y is -15, and it looks like I'm going to solve it and get the same exact thing. So it doesn't really matter which equation you plug into, minus 5 from both sides, you get 2y is negative 20. Divide both sides by 2, and you get y is still the same thing, negative 10. So it doesn't matter which equation you plug into, it should get the same thing. That's one way to check your answer too. So you get the same thing, but that's a lot of steps, I understand. So I put that in here, negative 10, submit, bam. Okay, so that's one type of problem where I can just add the problems together and solve for x or solve for y, and or solve for x and then go back, plug it in, solve for y. There's another type you're going to see today where, not this, okay, here's another type of problem you're going to see today where when we line these up, let me write it on the separate sheet of paper here, clear everything out. It's a lot of work. All right. Okay, and negative 3x plus 8y is negative 18. All right, let me just double check. Everything seems like good. Now, listen with this one. If I added these together, negative 3x and negative 3x, it's negative 6x. If I added these together, I get 17y. So nothing eliminates. Okay, so I can't really add these together. But what could you do instead of adding them together is subtracting them. So when I subtract them, so this one you're going to subtract. I'm going to write it up here. When I subtract the bottom equation, you're going to change the sign. So instead of this negative, I'm going to make it a positive. Instead of this as being a positive, it's going to be a plus a negative 8y. And again, this is going to be positive. So I'm just going to change the signs when I subtract. Because notice, what does that do? Oh, yeah. It cancels out these three x's. 9y minus 8y is 1y. Look at that. That's a nice equation to have. Negative 21 and 18 is negative 3. And I really don't need the y there. Look at that. I just solved for y just by itself. All right. So I don't need that y there. I found out my y value. So now, careful, I found my y value first, as opposed to the last problem where I found my x value first. So in here, I'm going to plug in negative 3 for y. Now to solve for x, you got to be careful again. I'm going to plug this in. I'm going to plug this one into the top equation for y, not for x. You plug it in for y. So we have negative 3x plus 9 times negative 3 is negative 21. And then I solve there. So we have negative 3x minus 27 is negative 21. Add 27 to both sides. And we get negative 3x is positive 6. Divide both sides by 3, negative 3, excuse me. And I get my x is negative 2. So once we get to this point, this is just using the algebra skills we've done before and just plugging it back in to solve for the equations. All right, so we have this negative 3x. Yep, and it should work for the bottom one also. If I just did that in my head, it should work out. So I'm going to plug in negative 2 in for x. Submit. And boom. So basically, to start off with, you have to see, am I going to add these equations together or subtract them based on their signs? So if I looked at a new problem, okay, if I looked at this one, these have an opposite sign here, so I'm just going to add these equations. If I looked at this one, again, opposite signs, just add them together. These have the same sign, so I'm going to have to subtract this. So I have to change the signs, plus, minus, minus. We'll do one more. Again, same thing, same signs, plus, minus, minus. So that's what you have to do to start off with. Figure out if you add the equations or subtract them, solve for x or y, make sure you plug it back in to find the other variable, and then submit your answers as coordinates at the end. So that's it for our lesson today on elimination, level 1. We're going to see in our next one a little bit more advanced problems of elimination. But show your work on paper. If you have questions, let me know. Thank you for watching.